welcome again to New York Talk. This is the Scout Report. We look ahead. Well, this time we have another home game, in the festive period, and it's Sunderland. We have Graham from What the Falk Pod. How are you doing, Graham?
Yeah, really well. If you'd asked me about 3 days ago, awful. But you win on Boxing Day, you know how that feels, and suddenly Christmas is great, isn't it?
It's great. I love it. Let's go back a little bit and let's take maybe a positive out of it. Obviously, a few weeks ago, the change of manager at Sunderland shocked everybody outside Sunderland, I think. So we had, from my point of view, done a great job. I think it was a great problem at the time, a year ago, whatever it was. I felt like he steadied the ship, which could have gone either way when he came in. Just talk to me about the fan base, or your opinion, on the sacking, first of all, of Tony Mowbray. And were you surprised?
Yeah, no. I think so. His last game was a 1-1 draw against Millwall. It was not a good performance. And one thing that Sunderland, like this season, I very rarely, give or take 1 or 2 performances, came back and gone, oh, we were absolutely awful today. Most games we completely dominate with possession, but we tend to play with the midfielder up front. We lost Ross Stewart to injury last season, sold him this year. He's still injured. So yeah, the money, 10 million for an injured striker that's not going to play for about 2 years is pretty good money, I guess. And you can't ham the club for that. But the 4 strikers we brought in either aren't rated or aren't ready. So most of the games we totally dominate, and if Jack Clark didn't score, we'd get done 1-0 off a crappy corner. And it became a real theme that there was no plan B. Tony Mowbray's football is really attractive, really nice. But after the Millwall game, we all came on, and it was the first time I asked a question on our review show and said, look, Tony Mowbray, is this the time? And almost, I think 75% of us, of the 4 of us, or 3 out of the 4 went, yeah, I think so. I think now's the time to move forward. But that was with the premise of what would come next. And Sunderland worked with a director of football, in the sense that that's Christian Speakman. He, with the recruitment team, works on the signings, gets a succession plan. What I think some of you might have saw beforehand was that in the summer, it came out that we were chasing, I think his name is Francesco Farioli, who's currently like second in the Liga 1 in France. At the time, he was this 34-year-old coach, and we were like, well, who's the hell? Well, what's wrong with Tony Mowbray? He's been fine. Like, we're kind of comfortable with that. As it is, this Farioli looks pretty decent, to be honest. He's kept like a record amount of clean sheets for Nice and stuff like that. So we thought there'd be a succession plan there. We thought if Tony goes, there'll be a young European manager that will come in. He'll adapt these like new coaching methods and kind of have these appointments that you see across this level of the game that push sides into the Premier League, and he'll get us a plan B and a plan C. And this group of wonderfully talented players will click, and we'll take the next step from Tony Mowbray. That said, I'm sure we'll get on to the appointment, but Tony Mowbray is one of my favourite managers we've ever had. Brilliant for us last season, the best football in my lifetime I've ever seen us play. And I lived in the Quinn and Phillips era, and look, I like football if you win games. So to me, crossing it to Quinny and Phillips, or Quinny puts it in the back of the net, never really bothered me, even though some people have seen it as direct. But Mowbray was a really good man. He really got the area. And now we're like 3 or 4 weeks on from a sacking. Like, I realised how much I really like Tony Mowbray. But look, it felt like the right time, but it was with the premise that we were going to bring in someone who would take us to the next level and would be an upgrade on Tony Mowbray and could maybe get us promoted.
Yeah, you mentioned the appointment. Michael Beale comes in, did okay at QPR. Did a pretty good job at QPR before he left, and then to Rangers and didn't do anything particularly special. Talk to me about how you feel about Michael Beale, and do you think it's good long term, or do you not think it's good?
I mean, you're talking in the aftermath of a win, so everything's great and rosy, isn't it? Fickle football world. But for me, like, I really hope it is. I would love nothing more than for people to find my old tweets about me criticising Beale and the podcast and me saying what a terrible appointment and how I thought it was the wrong decision, and ram it down my throat, because I don't mind having you're wrong, you're an idiot rammed down my throat if someone are winning games of football. I don't care. But you do a podcast, you know what it's like. You have your thoughts and opinions, and if you get rid of those thoughts and opinions, you're basically just reading from a teleprompter, and you can't do that. For me, Michael Beale was horrendously underwhelming. We talked before about as long as it wasn't upgrade on Tony Mowbray, I think I could ask most podcast hosts, most people in the Championship who's a genuine football fan, who do you think's got more in their sort of locker, Tony Mowbray or Michael Beale? And I think most people would say Tony Mowbray based on his history. And I know he's only got one team promoted, but like, look, he's always been in and around the playoffs. Michael Beale's history at the minute is won one trophy at Rangers as an assistant manager, had a disastrous time as the manager or head coach or whatever he was at Rangers, full of sound bites and really riled Rangers fans up the wrong way. I'm not saying we're as big as Rangers, but we're a pretty big football club. And I think, you know, you can't really get away too much with talking rubbish with Sunderland fans, because we'll find you out pretty fast, much like Rangers fans did immediately. And the way he left QPR was a real issue for me, because I think a lot of people will see the way Alex Neil left Sunderland last year, went and watched Stoke when we had a game. I mean, I don't know how it's going for him at Stoke. Hopefully he's doing well. And that grates on you a little bit. So for me, I was like, well, it appears we've got a man who hasn't got that much history, who's just spectacularly failed at a big club. Didn't really, I mean, look, I'll make no secret of it. I live in Glasgow. I've gone to see Rangers now and again. People know that, like, hands up. Like, that's the club I'll go see in Scotland. There was points when I stopped going because it was so boring to watch. And I was just like, this is just not worth watching it. And then it's just not an upgrade. So for me, I was really surprised. I was really shocked. I think everyone's seeing that Will Still was linked, and Michael Beale, to my knowledge, wasn't even in contention, and then kind of got, I'm guessing, a courtesy interview and has smashed them. But I had a guy on my podcast, a guy called Love for Words, who you might have had before from QPR, and he said, if Michael Beale gets you in a room for an interview, that's it, you're destroyed, because he's brilliant at them, brilliant at interviews. So yeah, I'm not enamored, but you know, really good win yesterday. He did some good things yesterday. Tactically, we were good yesterday. There was a little bit of a plan B defensively. We kept a clean sheet. We don't really do that under Tony Mowbray. We tend to concede a stupid goal and not score enough because we haven't got centre forward. Did we still look a little bit toothless up front? Yeah. Did he speak well in the aftermath of the game? Yeah, he did. Okay, fair enough. And I made a point this morning on our review show. If Michael Beale looks at his time at QPR, his conduct and how he left, and if he then looks at his time at Rangers and his conduct whilst he was at the club and the mistakes that he made, and decides that he has nothing to learn from it, and decides, oh, that was just bad luck, or this didn't work out, then he's the wrong man for Sunderland. If he looks at those periods of time and says, you know what, I can't do that again, I can't do this again, I can't do that, like, I'm going to make mistakes again, but I'm not going to make those mistakes again. And I'm at this massive football club, and this is the best place for me to, you know, bring my coaching expertise and move forward. On the flip side of that as well, he's coming here as a head coach. The staff's already in there. We really like Mike Dodds, best friends with Jude Bellingham, which is an accolade on itself. Jude Bellingham is now a Sunderland fan, as many people might have seen yesterday, which of course I'm sure that means a loan move before the game against that lot up the road on January the 6th. He is hoping. There's caveats, and I would love nothing more than Michael Beale to do really well. Am I concerned, and does it make me question if this whole model that Sunderland are allegedly having is not quite the model they're saying it is? Maybe, but like, you know what, Michael, go and get us promoted, go and win 5 games in a row and beat that lot up the road on January the 6th, and I'm sure I'll say, not doing too bad, mate, well done.
Yeah, that's football, isn't it? That's we're all in it for that.
Fickle. Winning games is one way to change anyone's mind.
Exactly. Absolutely right. So talking to some of the players, it seems like the model at Sunderland is to buy young and either progress them for the benefit of the football club or eventually sell them for a bucketload of money. Ross Stewart being one of those that you saw for a lot of money. Is that fair, and is that why the appointment was, for me, on the outside, it was very, very important, because you've got to have somebody who knows how to work with these youngsters and try and get the best out of them. Yeah,
basically. You've nailed the model. That's down to a T, really. And I think the reason Mowbray fits so well is he's like granddad, loves his revels and loves his chocolate, and it's just like everything's lovely and nice. And I think the players really took to it because he just let them express themselves. And last season it was brilliant. Looking back, was he bailed out a little bit by Diallo? Yeah, maybe not. I mean, Diallo was a joke, like ridiculous at this level. If we get Diallo back, we'll go up. I rate him that highly, but we're not getting him back because he's far too good for the Championship. But you're right in what you're saying. It's a big appointment, but he hasn't got charge of the recruitment. He's going to be in charge of the coaching alongside the coaching team of Mike Dodds and Michael Proctor. He has got a good reputation as being a good young coach. And, you know, he did well at Rangers as an assistant. He did eventually get them to the point where they did well. He started well at the beginning with Gerrard at Villa, and Villa kind of fell off a cliff when he left. And left Gerrard in charge of himself, which tells you about what Steven Gerrard's coaching abilities are like. He's not doing that well in Saudi Arabia either. So he's obviously got something about him. What, I don't know. To me, he seems a little bit PowerPoint presentation happy.
Yeah.
And Christian Speakman in the sort of press conference that presented him, he said he's got an obsession with progression. And I was like, shut up. Yeah. Shut up. Like, just shut up. Yeah. Like, but maybe that's me. Maybe I like my Tony Mowbrays and my Alex Neils. You know, spade's a spade. I don't like middle management KPI speak. I don't work in a call center. Don't treat me like I do. But if it works, and it has in some places for Michael Beale, then brilliant. Like, you know, maybe these little margins and little things that he looks at that maybe Tony Mowbray hasn't over his career because he's old school and just wants to teach his players. Maybe that works. He's worked in youth team football. You know, he speaks a lot about working with Trent, as he calls him by his first name and stuff like that, which will get on some people's goats. And the way I've said it is kind of almost derogatory, but let's be honest, he has been part of that player's progression. And I think, you know, one big thing for us is that you've got, I laughed before about Jude Bellingham coming to the game, but Job's a really good player. I'm sure we'll get onto the players that we've got. And you've seen what Job can present as a centre forward against you a lot at the our first win of the season. And I think when you bring in players like Job, you know, you don't produce a Job Bellingham on, certainly you don't produce a Jude Bellingham without good advice from parents and stuff like that. And Mike Dodds and Christian Speakman had a heck of a lot to do with those players when they were young. And I think, you know, when you bring in the likes of Michael Beale, they must be looking and going, can we get a Job up to the extent of, you know, selling him for millions of pounds, or can he progress to the point where he's a really important player for Sunderland in the Premier League? And can this guy take us to the next step? I have my doubts, but look, I'm not involved in the football club. It's just, I just have to trust him at this point. And the one thing I would say were, you know, myself, and I can only speak for myself, is that if you've got a Sunderland badge on your chest, I'm going to back you. I'll call you on your stuff. I'll call you on your shirt because I care. But ultimately, I care about you because you're wearing the club colours. And as long as you're wearing those club colours, I'll back you. I have my doubts, but I'm starting to convince myself, because we've won one game against Hull on Boxing Day, that he might just be the Messiah. But it's a really important one. I tell you what, if he fails, a lot of that is going to go on the chairman's head and Speakman, because if this is an appointment that doesn't work and doesn't progress us, then you get concerned. Well, fingers crossed. What can you do?
Yeah. Absolutely. Talk about a few players. You mentioned Bellingham. We were spoke on your show a minute ago, Jack Clark. On Jack Clark, there was interest in the summer. Are you worried that January Burnley might come back in with a bucket load of cash, or do you think where you are in the league with a new appointment, you're positive that there won't be any major outgoings in the window?
It depends if Jack Clark's listening. If he is, come on, Jack. Burnley. Really? Yeah. I mean, they're going to come down. There's no point. There's also links to Brentford. It's all right. Brentford's nice. I mean, Frank seems like a nice fella, but do you really want to leave Michael Beale? We've just talked about his brilliant PowerPoint presentations. If Jack Clark is not listening, I'm terrified of it. Absolutely terrified. But I think what a lot of people outside of Sunderland don't realise is that Jack has a sell-on clause as well. We owe Spurs, I don't know the amount. I'm going to throw a figure out here that I've got no knowledge of and say I'm guessing like 15, 20, 10% or something like that. So anything we get from is going to have to be on top of that. I feel like if someone goes here, there's 20 something million, I think we'll take it. Do I think we should? No. But like, hey, look, I don't work in that arena, unfortunately. Now, if you come to a Sunderland fan and say, do you want to sell your best player? I'm going to go, not for £100 million, unless they're swapping me with Amad Diallo. No chance. but he's in Premier League player in waiting. He's brilliant. He's like the amount of goals he's scoring from a wing position. And look, he's missed a few as well. And there's a couple of penalties in there, but I mean, you can see his quality in the goal against Hull. Just skips around the bloke and gives me one of the best days I've had in ages. But I do think we'll be tested. Yeah, I think if it's Burnley, I think he's an idiot.
Yeah,
because I don't see what. Yeah, look, I don't think Burnley. I know they're in the Premier League. I personally think they'll get relegated. Whenever you move to a club, you look what division are they going to be in next season. So there's no doubt that he'd be advised. Look, there's a chance you could be back in the Championship next season if you go here. Do I think Burnley coming down might go back up? Yeah, probably. But like, what's to say Sunderland can't go up in the next 2 years? Like, there's nothing to say that. So I don't think Burnley makes sense. Brentford, the London life, big wad of cash, developing good young players. The guy from Hull went there a few years ago. I forget his name now. He's got 3 words. Oh my god.
Potter, King Louis Potter, isn't it?
Yeah, Potter something or other. Yeah, I feel like if someone other than Burnley goes, well, he is 20, 25 million, we might go, fair enough. But if you sell Jack Clark, even if you bring in a striker and you bring Amad Diallo back, you can sort of forget about getting promoted this season. But if it gets to the end of the season of not being promoted, how the hell do we hang on to him?
Yeah.
How do you do that? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the worst part of being football. We're about to get this in January. Probably a couple of best players leave, and it just breaks your heart.
It's so sad.
Yeah. This is you might not know the answers. What should we expect from Sunderland on Friday? Is there something you can pick out so far in these first 2 games?
A little bit. We haven't changed too much. I mean, yesterday's game, I'll tell you the difference between yesterday's game and the game previous. Off the top of my head, that would have been Bristol City, Plymouth, whatever it may be. We lost 2-0 at Plymouth. We lost 1-0 at Bristol City. I think we had both games, we had 30 shots and 14 of them on target. No goals. 70% possession. We'll pass the ball. We'll come at you. We'll look really incredibly pretty. Every team we play against, I always get a tweet back going, "Oh, I know we won, but you're such a good team to watch." I'm like, well, not when we don't score, not. So I think you can probably expect us to dominate the majority of the play, to come at you, to push you back, to have numerous shots, to look amazing in and around the area. And then when we get in the box, you go, "Oh, they haven't got a striker." But that happened yesterday. But defensively, we were actually a lot more organised. And Bristol City game, we lost because of a penalty. Patterson's made a bad kick out. He's then made a foul on the player. They've won a penalty. They've scored. Plymouth, 2 long ranges, really good goals. And that puts you on the back foot. But I would say for 70% of the game in both of them, to be fair to Plymouth, they had, after they scored the first, they had a period when they got at us and then got the second. I'm maybe being a bit unfair on Plymouth there, but if you look at the stats from even the Swansea game when it was, they had 10 men, but beforehand, we were absolutely torturing them. I think we were on 10 shots or something. But you can expect a heck of a lot of play from us where we're basically dominating the play in the middle, looking really pretty, good, young, hungry, exciting players. And then it gets in the box. The best way to beat Sunderland for me is to soak it up, hope we don't score and do us on a corner. Cardiff did it to us this season. There's numerous teams done it away from home. When we've been away from home, that is. We look really good. You'll be really impressed by us, but it'll be whether or not you score off something daft or you can manage to nick a long range or get something from a set piece. And then how many of those chances that we create can we actually finish? We don't play with strikers.
Yeah.
So it's a source of frustration to us that we're so good and the players are so likable. And there's a big Ross Stewart-shaped hole there. So yeah, I think I expect us to dominate the game, and that's not an arrogant thing. That's happened almost every game this season. It just, if we don't score, then you might do us 1-0. It sucks. It's awful.
With that in mind, let everybody know your prediction. What's your prediction for this scoreline on Friday night?
I got on change it because we recorded a podcast earlier, didn't we? So, look, if all my results were right last season, Sunderland would have finished 3rd, and then I probably would have guessed us to win the playoffs. So Sunderland went up through the playoffs last year in my head. I think we'll win, and I think we need to win. I know how important it is for you to get 3 points or a point, and I know like you've picked up points against Ipswich, you've picked up points against Leeds, you beat Middlesbrough at home, you beat Coventry at home, teams that have battered us at the Stadium of Light, the latter two that I've mentioned there. But Michael Beale wasn't a popular appointment. You might guess that. He's definitely had a bit of rope thrown to him with the win yesterday, because he did have a part to play in that with the way he set us up. If he goes to Rotherham a couple of days later and we get beat, or we don't have a good performance, or again, it's another performance where we get a million chances and don't score, you're going to go, oh, brilliant. So Boxing Day was great, but we can't beat the team bottom of the league. That's no disrespect to Rotherham. That's where you're at. That's what it's going to be looked at. So I'll say 2-0, but I think it's not a must win. But like, I think another win would be very, very beneficial for him. I think a defeat might not be great, but it's a tough game. I think you're a different proposition at home than you are away. And as we touched on my podcast, small pitch, we like to play expansive football. That creates its own issues, as we saw last year. I know we had Geldart up front last year. I know he scored, but he was not a centre forward. We worked that out pretty fast.
I could tell from that game that he weren't.
He's not a centre forward. Mr. Sitter at the end in that game as well, if I remember rightly. But yeah, I'll take 2-0. But it's a bit more hope. I'm looking at you as bottom of the league and thinking, well, maybe we'll get more chances than we usually do and score some of them and not concede at the back. But who knows? I think the Championship is a wonderful, stupid league. Like, it is just a stupid league. But let's hope for 2-0 from a Sunderland perspective.
Fair enough. Thank you. I'll let everybody know, Graham, if you want to check out me speaking on your podcast or a review of the game, where can they find you?
Just at What the Falk Pod, which I think I've put on the screen thing, like, because technology is great and I can do that, which is fab. And just everywhere you would normally find it, like the internet. If you have the internet, look in the internet, and it's inside of the internet where you would normally find stuff. Why the hell you'd want to listen to any more of me, I have no idea, but I'm a bit Marmite. Some of them who like Marmite may like it, so just wherever you want. We always review the game afterwards and stuff like that, and we always try our best to be balanced. So if you get a good result, pop on. I hope you don't. I hope I lack listeners on Friday evening or Saturday morning, but pop on and we always review the game and see what we think and what we thought of the game. So pop on if you want to.
Top stuff. We'll put links as well in the show notes as well. Thank you everybody who's watched us tonight or whenever you're listening. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, and we'll see you all for our next episode. Thank you, Graham. As always, a pleasure, mate.
Mine as well, mate.
Cheers. Thank you, everybody. Up the Millers.